Exodus, I'm already in August. Exodus 33, verse 12. Here we go. What'd you say? It's supposed to be 110 today, something like that. We probably won't reach that in here, but 100 will be all right. I think it'll happen by noon. Here we go. We'll be talking about the golden calf, but, kind of bring everybody up to speed. Brought it to the place where Moses went up and got the 10 Commandments on the mountain. Come back down, and because he was gone 40 days, nobody saw him. They thought he was gone, wasn't coming back. So Aaron hears the people. The people say, hey, we got to have a God. We got to have somebody that's going to represent us. We can't just be, we have to have somebody, some God. And he goes, okay, let's do it. And Aaron says, bring me all your earrings, your gold. We'll melt it down. We'll make a golden calf out of it. And you can dance and have fun, worship around it. Well, you know the story. Moses and Joshua are coming off the mountain. And Joshua says, man, I hear war. Moses says, no, I hear party. And as you know, that's how it kind of works. Some people hear a party and some people hear a war. You just have to know how to discern. They were both right, but depending on what their slant was or their position where they're coming from in the spirit, it takes a Joshua. Joshua would hear that kind of thing because Joshua had a different spirit. Joshua was also the one going to lead him into the promised land. Moses was going to keep him right there in the wilderness. So here's how this kind of goes. Moses had to intercede on behalf of the people. God was upset. So Moses says this. One day Moses said to the Lord, "You've been telling me take these people into the promised land, up to the promised land." Now look at this. Now this is critical right here because this is King James Version, but it says, "Take these people up to the promised land." Not only was it up in elevation in landscape, but that also has a prophetic symbol to it where it says take these people up. You have to go up in the spirit, up into a position to see things from a higher elevation in your life, not just physically, okay? So, you know what I'm talking about when you see something here on the ground floor and then the Lord takes you up and allows you to see it at a higher level and you go, oh, I can see it. It's like sports. I'm a sports guy. It's easier to see things from the press box or the coach's box than it is to be on the ground. So when you're up here, you got people calling in plays from up here. Why? Because they can see the whole field. They see the elevation is higher to see. Well, people down on the ground, it's hard to see it. So they're relying on information coming from somebody that sees a different perspective. Well, it's the same way in the spirit and living life. Sometimes when you're living in life and you're engaged in it, you ever heard the saying you can't see the forest for the trees? Sometimes you're in the middle of the thing, and unless God allows you just to see it from a different perspective, a higher perspective, you can't see the whole thing. And that's what he's telling, come up to the promised land. It's a land in Christ, which is in an elevated position in the spirit that allows you to see things higher, and you take the high road as opposed to having a dog-eat-dog kind of world. But you haven't told me whom you will send with me. You have told me, I know you by name, and I look favorably upon you. What's this? Now, therefore, I pray, this is Moses talking to God, I pray thee, if I have found grace in your sight, show me your way, that I may know thee, that I may find grace in your sight, and consider that the nation is your people. And he said, my presence shall go with you, and I will give you rest. That's crazy. I'll give you rest with my presence, okay? And he said unto him, if thy presence don't go with me, don't carry us up there. I'm not going. For wherein shall it be known here that I and thy people have found grace in your sight? Is it not that in that thou goest with us? Shall we be separated, and I thy people from all the people that are upon the face of the earth? How are we going to know this? God, if you say you're going to go with, how are we going to know? And the Lord said to Moses, I will do this thing also that thou hast spoken. For you found grace in my sight, and I know you by name. And he said, I beseech thee, show me thy glory. Oh, here we go. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before thee, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee, and I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious to, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And he said, thou canst not see my face. You can't see my face, for no man shall see me and live. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me, and thou shalt stand upon a rock. Watch this. And it shall come to pass while my glory pass by that I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and I'll cover you with my hand when I pass by. And I will take my hand away, and you shall see this version says back parts, another version says hinder parts, but my face shall not be seen. Now what this is saying here, I'm going to give you a little bit of just insight. What this is saying is, listen, Moses, I'm going to reveal myself to you, but what I'm going to show you is the backside. In other words, I'm going to show you what it's going to look like when it's finished, but I might not show you what it looks like when you start. I'm not going to show you the front end. You're going to experience the front end, but you're going to have to trust me because I'm going to show you the back. Anybody ever had a vision from the Lord that God said, this is what it's going to be in your life, and you see this end result like you're building a house, and you go, God, I want the house to be built. And you see the end result of that house, but you have no idea how it's going to happen from here. God very rarely shows you this front, but he'll show you the back, and you're going to have to trust him to get from the front to the back. He gives you a vision, a dream, a desire, and he gives you glimpses of what that looks like, and then he makes you live it out from here. But he very rarely shows you on the front end all the details of what it's going to be, because if he does, you're going to rely on your own ability as opposed to rely on his. That's how it works. If you see it here, I know I'm that way. I'll come up with a real good plan. And God says, man, I want my plan to happen. It's my way. And I'll give you rest, because if you see it the front and the back and you got it all figured out, our natural tendency is to manipulate it or work it ourselves, the plan that God, and then we'll say, God, we're going to do it. We want you to bless it. God says, I want to bless what I'm doing. I want you to participate. Okay? He said, I'll take away my hand. I'm going to show you the hinder parts or back parts. And the Lord said to Moses, hew these 2 tables of stone like unto the first. Here we go. And I will write up on these tables the words that were the first tables which you broke. And be ready in the morning. I'll stop here for just a second. Let's go back just once first, if you don't mind. And the Lord said to Moses, show these 2 tables of stones like unto the first, and I'll write up on these tables the words that were in the first table. Okay, Jesus is the law perfected. Okay? Jesus is the law. Perfected law. Holy. He's the only one holy, and he's perfect in all his ways. Do you remember when he died? Where did they bury him? In a grave, right? It was hewn out of a rock, right? The law was inscribed on rock. Jesus was buried in a rock, a tomb that was on the side of a hill, okay? Now watch this. Keep going. You broke it, and be ready in the morning and come up in the morning of Mount Sinai and present thyself to me. I'm going to give this to you again. This is so crazy. And no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount. Therefore, neither let the flocks nor herds feed before the mount. And he hewed out 2 tables of stone, like the first. Moses rose up early in the morning and went up into the Mount Sinai. Now, Mount Sinai, if you'll remember, was where Moses had the encounter with God with the burning bush, right? So he's going back to a familiar place where there's an encounter. And the Lord had to command him and took in his hand the 2 tables of stone. And the Lord descended, the Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. Now, in Thessalonians, it talks about when the trump of God shall blow, the Lord will descend with a shout. You know that scripture? This is a picture of the Lord crowning his church on the day of Pentecost, when the Spirit of God came on the day of Pentecost and he descended upon man. This is what happened. And the Lord descended into the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed by before him and proclaimed, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness. Aren't you glad the Lord is this way? He's merciful, he's gracious, he's long-suffering, and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will be by no means clear the guilty. See, it's not going to make sure, he doesn't just excuse sin, he deals with it. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children's children, and upon the 3rd and 4th generation. And Moses made haste and bowed his head toward the earth and worshiped. This is good. And he said, if now I have found grace in your sight, O Lord, let my Lord, I pray thee, go among us, for it is our stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take for us thine inheritance. And he said, behold, I make a covenant before all thy people, I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among which thou art shall see the work of the Lord. For it is a terrible thing, which is a good thing. It's not terrible and a bad thing. It's terrible and a good thing that I will do. Now watch this. I'm going to stop right here for just a second. I will make a covenant before all the people. I will do marvels. What I'm going to do in all the earth has never been seen before. There's nothing to compare to it. Now this is on the heels of him creating heaven and earth, putting man in the garden. This is on the heels of separating the Red Sea and allowing people to walk across it. This is the plagues. This is the flies. This is the lice. You remember all this? That's the rivers turned into blood. The quail, manna coming from heaven. One right after Abraham, Isaac being put on the altar, and the ram being in the thicket. This is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we're talking about from the beginning of time. He's telling him now, I'm going to do something so big in your life that there's no reference for it. I mean, can you imagine Moses? Because Moses saw the hinder parts, remember? Which means he saw the backside of this thing. So that's why he was able to write the first 5 books of the Bible. He wasn't living in Genesis, but he saw Genesis. God allowed him to see it so he could write it and scribe it. Okay? Moses wrote those books, and Moses didn't live in that time. Right? So here he is. So my point is, God said, on the heels of all of those incredible miracles that God did for his people that blew their mind, God's now telling these people, I'm going to do a covenant. I'm going to make a covenant with you. And what I'm going to do before all the people, I'll do marvels. Such has not been done in something greater than all of those frame of references that they even have. Can you imagine if God come to you and said, listen, knowing all the things you've seen him do in your life, knowing all the things he's done in other people's life, knowing the things he's done in the earth, and he comes to you and he says, man, I'm making a covenant with you. I'm going to do something so marvelous you wouldn't even, it'll blow your mind. Can you imagine that? Do we have the faith to believe him that he could do something so spectacular that doesn't even compare to separating water, rivers, doesn't even compare to fire coming from heaven? I mean, doesn't even compare to all that. He's going to do something even greater. Watch this. This is crazy. Observe now that which I command thee this day. Behold, I drive out before thee. God is driving out the enemy. It didn't say Moses was going to drive him out. It said God was going to drive him out. I'm driving out before you, right in front of you. I want you to see this. The Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Take heed yourself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of it. In other words, he's saying, remember the covenant that I'm making with you, so when you go in here and start dealing with all these people, that you don't start operating in an earthly covenant and forget what I'm giving you from heaven. Okay? But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For thou shalt worship no other God. In other words, you've been here before. You saw the golden calf, had to destroy it. There is no other God but me. For the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. In other words, he's not sharing you. That's why when people get connected to the things of the world, God is jealous for you because he loves you so much, he doesn't want to share you with things that are not good for you. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go whoring after other gods, their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of the sacrifice. And thou shalt take of their daughters unto the sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a whoring after their gods. Thou shalt make thee no molten gods. The feast of unleavened bread shall be kept. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as I've commanded you in the time of month of Abib. For in the month of Abib thou shalt comest out, that camest out of Egypt. In other words, that was the day I brought you out. It was the day you got saved. All that openeth the matrix is mine. And every firstling among thy cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. But the firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb, and if thou redeem him not, then shalt thou break his neck. All the firstborn of thy sons thou shalt redeem, and none shall appear before me empty. 6 days thou shalt work, but on the seventh day thou shalt rest. In earing time and in harvest thou shalt rest. And thou shalt observe the feast of the weeks, and the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering, and at the year's end. See, we look at this, we go, what's this have to do with my life today? I'm going to show you. Thrice in the year shall your men children appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. For I will cast out the nations before thee, and enlarge thy borders, neither shall any man desire thy land, when thou shalt go up to appear before the Lord thy God 3 times in a year. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left unto the morning. The first of thy firstfruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of thy God, the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. And the Lord said to Moses, write thou these words, for after the tenor of these words I have made a covenant with you and Israel. And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water. Do you remember Jesus going out in the wilderness fasting for 40 days, wrestling with Satan? This is a picture of the redemption of what this happened here. Nor drink water. And he wrote upon the tables of the words of the covenant the 10 commandments. And it came to pass when Moses came down from the Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of the testimony in Moses' hand, when he came off the mountain, Moses wist not that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, Moses' face was shining, and they were afraid to come near to him because he had so much glory on his face. Moses called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned unto him, and Moses talked with them. Watch this. And afterward, all the children of Israel came near, and he gave them the commandments, all that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. Until Moses had done speaking with him, he put a veil on his face. Moses had a veil on his face, and the veil on his face because he was in the presence of God. And Moses' veil, because they could not look directly on his face without being blinded because of the glory that was transferred to Moses while he was in the presence of God. So Moses himself put the veil over his face so he could talk to them and they wouldn't get distracted by the glory that was on his face. Now, that's Moses giving the law. Today, that veil has been removed. And the glory that you have, that God gives you and that's on you, is for everybody to see. Thanks, Peter. Everybody sees it. Make sense? Okay, that was the Old Testament and the law. Moses had to put a veil on his face. But when Moses went before the Lord to speak, he took the veil off until he came out. In other words, you don't have 2 faces. You don't have a face that you have with God and a face you have with the people. Today, the same face you can talk to God with, you can also talk to people. Make sense? In that day, he had to have a certain face because here, the people couldn't handle what him and God were doing. Too much for them. Here, today, the people are ready to receive what you have from God. Okay? There is no veil. The veil has been rent. And he came out and spoke to the children of Israel that which was commanded. Now watch this. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face was so shiny, and Moses put the veil upon his face again until he went in to speak with him. Just keep right on going. There we go. And Moses gathered all the congregation of children of Israel together and said to them, these are the words which the Lord hath commanded us, that ye should do them. 6 days, you're going to work. But on the 7th day, there shall be to you a holy day, a Sabbath of rest to the Lord. Whoever does work therein shall be put to death. Ye shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations on the Sabbath day. And Moses spake unto the congregation of children of Israel, saying, this is the thing which the Lord God commanded, saying, take ye from among you an offering unto the Lord. Whosoever is of a willing heart, let him bring it an offering to the Lord. gold, silver. Now watch this. Gold, silver, and brass. Now God doesn't need their stuff. Here's what he's saying. Whoever is willing of heart, let him bring an offering. God doesn't take it. See, the government today takes your taxes before you get your check. God gives you your whole check and says, well, you're going to give me an offering. Because it's an intent of the heart. Let him bring it an offering of the Lord God, Lord, gold, silver, and brass. Now watch this. Purple, blue, scarlet, and fine linen, and goat's hair. And ram skins dyed red, and badger skins, and shittim wood, and oil for the light, and spices for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense. And onyx stones, and stones to be set for the ephod, and for the breastplate. And every wise-hearted among you shall come and make all that the Lord hath commanded. The tabernacle, his tent, and his covering, his taches, I guess, and his boards, his bars, his pillars, and his sockets. The ark and the staves thereof, which is the mercy within the mercy seat, and the veil of the covering. The table and his staves, and all his vessels, and the showbread. And the candlestick also for the light, and his furniture, and his lamps with the oil for the light. And the incense altar, and his staves, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the hanging for the door of the entering of the tabernacle. And the altar of burnt offering with his brazen grate, his staves and all his vessels, the laver and his foot. The hangings of the court, his pillars and their sockets, and the hanging for the door of the court. The pins of the tabernacle and the pins of the court and their cords. The cloths of the service to do the service in the holy place, the holy garments for Aaron and the priest, and the garments of his son to minister in the priest's office. And all the congregation of children departed from the presence of Moses. Could you pull that, Chad, up, that picture of the ark of again? Do we still have that close by? Well, I want to show you. All I just read to you is a narrative, but here is what the finished product looks like, okay? That would be like I stood up and said, look, you're going to pour concrete. It's going to be a 10 by 10, and I'm going to tell you all what to do. He did. But it's sure easy to see the picture of what it looks like once it's been poured, right? This is what it looks like. On the bottom, my right, your right, if I'm facing the screen, there's a man outside, a priest there. It goes from east towards that. I don't know what that's even called. I guess it'd be northwest, but I don't know that's how it's structured in there. But the guy on the bottom right goes through the first phase. That's the outer court. There's the inner court between the two curtains. And inside there is the Ark of the Covenant, Ark of the Testimony, which we know the ark means coffin. Inside of there are you'll see later, the table of the stone, the Aaron's rod that budded, and the pot of gold, manna, okay? But there's three components. You see that? Outer, the middle section, and then the inside. The priest starts out here, works his way in there. God's presence is over top of that little box in the upper corner of that picture. He'll come down and meet them right there. All right? If I say this to you, this will make more sense into reality. This is a picture of a human being. Okay? How does it look like a human being? The outside where that man is standing is your body. In between those two curtains is your mind, your soul. Inside the other part of that curtain is your spirit, your character, your conscience. Your essence is behind that core. So you have a body, a mind or soul, and a spirit. Okay? In the Old Covenant, Moses' order that he got from God, you have to start out here and go through the body, through the mind, into the spirit. In other words, what you see has a direct influence on what you see in your head, in your mind, and once you process it through your mind, it changes how you believe. When Jesus come, he didn't come that way. Jesus come in Mary. So when Jesus come in Mary, Jesus come inside Mary's heart. Okay? And he worked himself out. He started in her spirit, came through the mind, and out of her body. Does that make sense? He reversed the order. So today, it is a matter of what you believe. Your mind lines up with what you believe in your heart, what the Spirit says, and then your circumstances line up with what comes from here. Most people, we're going to talk about this at 11 o'clock, because most people live externally. what does the external say? So if you have a bad day and your circumstances are bad, then it changes how you have mind of your peace. You either have peace, confusion, or turmoil, and then your heart inside is affected by that. And the battle is right here. And let me just say it this way. And I really get into 11 o'clock service here, but your mind is the Garden of Eden. Okay? It's the Garden of Eden. Okay? The enemy come in the Garden of Eden as a serpent to try to change her mind. Okay? Adam's mind. If he can change your mind in your soul, he owns your body. Because you take on the character of the enemy of God, which is self and not selfless. It's about how you. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Let me give you a real practical example. I've done this, man. This is one of the hardest things. This is one of the biggest tricks of the enemy. He cannot create, but he can plant. Okay? But you're the only creator. He's so mad at mankind because he can't create. We're the creators. But he's deceptive, so what he does is he plants a thought in your mind to get you to create a scenario in your head, so you begin to create for him, and he becomes the blueprint, the architect, and you're the general contractor. That makes sense? That's how he functions. He has one trick. So here's what happens. He plants a thought. That person really don't like you. Huh. And then next thing you know, that thought hits, it's a seed, plants it. Then you begin to go, uh-oh, I don't really like that person either. I don't know why that person don't like me, because I've done everything. And you begin to build a scenario in your head. You make a movie in your mind that person or persons are stars in your head. I mean, stars, I'm talking about actors. They're in your mind. And you, in a matter of 30 seconds, 60 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, depending how long you dwell on it, you can create an entire movie in your head of hypothetical situations based on a bad thought that comes from the enemy. And then you begin to live out of that, because the emotional side of that. Have you ever watched a movie? I mean, I've done it. You go to a movie and you watch, and you already know how the movie's going to go, but you find yourself tense in the movie because you're right in the middle of it could go either way. It's the climax of the plot, and you're going, oh man, and you find yourself just engaged and tense. It could be a movie that you've seen before. I mean, a horror movie. Not that I'm encouraging all that. I'm just saying, you're watching Halloween or one of those crazy Poltergeist, one of those things that you've watched, and you look at this thing going, oh my God, and you kind of know where it's going, but you find yourself emotionally engaged, and you even find yourself a little nervous through that thing. Why? Because you're engaged in it. Well, it's the same thing that happens in your head. And here's how he does. If he isolates you by yourself and gives you time to think, and you have some downtime, that's when those thoughts start coming. He pulls Adam and Eve in the garden, pulls them off to themselves. Before you know it, they're going. And before you know it, you have an incredible scenario that you're playing out in your head that you have not even come to. My dad used to tell me this all the time. Don't cross bridges in your head that you haven't come to in real life. And I did it. I mean, I don't know I'm a thinker. I mean, I'm a forward thinker, and I anticipate. And I'm a visionary. I can see things ahead, and sometimes I can create a scenario in my mind. And if the enemy knows that, how you think, and he knows how you think because he just has to look how you acted before when he planted a thought. But you have to know he's not a creator, but he does plant seed. That's why in the garden, in Genesis, when God came to curse him after he transgressed and got Eve and Adam to transgress, he looks at the woman, he says, man, there's going to be enemy between your seed and Satan's seed, his offspring, and your offspring. And it's not just kids, even though it's really kids too, taking the seed, it's the fruit that comes from your life. This making any sense? This is the biggest part. Okay, if that's why the enemy is so, that's why the enemy wants to get your mind altered. The reason substance abuse, alcohol, pornography anything that twists and alters your thinking and how you see things gives him a better opportunity to plant a thought that you will chase. And then you begin to make actions based on a thought that was built on deception and falsehood, and you won't ever know until you've created these consequences and you look back and can go, oh my God, what have I done? Anybody know what I'm talking about? I've had a person come to me one time, this has been several years ago, and they were mad at me for about 2 years. And I said, they finally came to me and said, man, I need you to forgive me. I said, for what? They said, I've been holding this against you for 2 years. I said, holding what? They said, well, that thing. And I said, what thing? They told me the thing, and I said, well, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. And they said, well, yeah, it was this thing. I said, that didn't happen. I said, where did you hear that? And he said, well, now that I think about it, I don't know where I heard it. I said, I got an idea where you heard it. I said, when did that thought first come to you? He said, well, I was on vacation. I said, well, who told you on vacation? I said, I can tell you who went on vacation with you. The enemy planted that thought in your head. You created a scenario. You came back. I was in your movie that you had in your head. I didn't even know that I was the best actor. I didn't know. So you come back and we start interacting based on a movie in your head. I didn't know I was there. So now you're acting different towards me. I can't figure it out. Now, if I'm really in the flesh, and I kind of was a little bit during that 2 years, because I thought, man, if you're going to act that way, I don't know anything to do with you. And what happened was, he got me in the flesh, so we started, and then I started playing a movie in my mind about how he was acting. You see how it all worked? And the enemy so the seed that was planted in his head and in my mind over those 2 years created an offspring or fruit that was enemy with God's Spirit and the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, temperance, self-control, meekness. Does that make sense? That's how it works. So that's why the Bible talks about idle time. If you got idle time on your hand and you're sitting around thinking all the time, you better make sure you're thinking of things of good, that are joy, that are pure, that are holy, because if you don't, and they enter your mind, whoever they are, before you know it, you've created a scenario in your head that it's not good. And you got to walk back through that thing, right? And that's how he works, because he can't create, but what he does do is he plants a seed. Okay. It was just free today. It was just a little extra. And they came, everyone whose heart stirred him up, and everyone whom his spirit made him willing, and they brought the Lord's offering to the work of the tabernacle of the congregation, and for all his service, and for the holy garments. They brought all their stuff because within the family, within the community, within the congregation, were all the materials, all the skills to build what I just showed you, that picture looked like. Okay? And they came both men and women, as many that were willing-hearted, and brought bracelets and their earrings and rings and tablets and all jewels of gold, and every man that offered an offering of gold unto the Lord. And every man with whom was found blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen and goat's hair and red skins and rams and badger skins brought them. Everyone that did offer an offering of silver and brass to the Lord's offering, and every man with whom was found shittim wood for any work of the service brought it also. And all the women that were wise-hearted did spin with their hands, and they brought that which they had spun. They were sewing, both of blue and of purple and of scarlet and of fine linen. They were creating those veils, those curtains. And all the women whose heart stirred them up in wisdom spun goat's hair. And the rulers brought onyx stones and stones to be set for the ephod and for the breastplate. Had 12 tribes, 6 on this side of it was like an armor. And the breastplate had 6 stones down here, 6 stones down here. 6 tribes on this side, 6 tribes on this side, okay? Representing every family in Jacob's family. Spice and oil for the light and for the anointing oil and for the sweet incense. The children of Israel brought a willing offering unto the Lord, every man and woman whose heart made them willing to bring for all a manner of work which the Lord had commanded to be made by the hand of Moses. And Moses said unto the children of Israel, see, the Lord hath called by name Bezaleel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, the tribe of Judah. Now this is like a repeat. If you'll notice, we did this already. But Moses broke those 10 commandments. So now we're going to get this thing again. And he hath filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom, understanding, and in knowledge, in all manner of workmanship, to devise curious works, to work in gold and silver and in brass, and in the cutting of stones to set them, and in carving of wood to make any manner of cunning work. And he hath put in his heart that he may teach both he and Eliab, the son of Ahimelech, this tribe of Dan. Them hath he filled with the wisdom of heart to work all manner of work of the engraver and of the cunning workman and of the embroiderer in the blue and the purple and the scarlet and the fine linen and the weaver, even of them that do any work and those that devise cunning work. Then he wrought Bezaleel and Aholiab and every wise-hearted man in whom the Lord had put wisdom and understanding to know how to work all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary according to all that the Lord hath commanded. And Moses called Bezaleel and Eliab and every wise-hearted man in whose heart the Lord had put wisdom, even every one whose heart stirred him up to come unto the work to do it. And they received of Moses all the offering which the children of Israel had brought for the work of the service of the sanctuary to make it withal, and they brought yet unto them free offerings. Every morning they would bring an offering. And all the wise men that wrought all the work of the sanctuary came every man from his work which they made. And they spake unto Moses, saying, the people bring much more than enough for the service of the work, which the Lord commanded to make. And Moses gave commandment and caused it all to be proclaimed throughout the camp, saying, let neither man nor woman make any more work for the offering of the sanctuary. So the people were restrained from it. In other words, Moses saying, listen, we don't need any more stuff. We got it. We got what we need. You don't need to bring any more. Now, that doesn't line up with the American church today. It doesn't happen. And I know I got many pastors friends, that have gone through building projects and they're doing church vision and all this, and they're going, man, I just can't get people. Well, if the people aren't participating, perhaps maybe it's not the right vision, okay? And what I'm learning and have learned is it really has to be about the people, and you have to be enriched in your life. Okay, these guys here, if you'll notice, God had already told them, I'm bringing you out of Egypt, taking you up into this promised land. That's how you benefit, okay? But in the journey, we're going to set up a tabernacle where I'm going to dwell with you, okay? And it's going to be for service, for where my presence dwells. But you're still going to live. You're still going to occupy. You're going to still have to move. You're still going to have to do your work. You're going to have to do all these things. But you're going to benefit because we're taking you into that promised land. What happens is when we begin to make it look like the church is the main thing and forget that the people are the church and the building becomes a church. The building is a tool to build people, but the people are never a tool to build a building, right? The only reason that tabernacle, that tent was being built and they were bringing all this stuff was because it was a place for God to dwell where people could meet with him, the tent of meeting, right? But the problem is if it all becomes a building and it's only about a building, then the people begin to worship the image and not the one that's coming in the. And I know many churches, I've been in churches. I have preached in churches where the Spirit of God was not there, but people thought he was. I remember preaching in a church one time down south, and I was about 15 or 20 minutes into the message, and they were worshiping and everything, and man, God wasn't there. He had left probably about 20 minutes before they did. And I looked down, and I said, hey guys, I just closed my Bible. I said, y'all can sing if you want to, but I really feel like this is probably, service is already over. And man, they didn't want that to be over. They felt like they wanted me to do something to get God moving. And finally I just said, hey, he left, and I'm catching him. I'm going after him. He's gone. He's already down at the restaurant. And you know what? I'm going. And it was a moment. It was a real tense moment too, because it wasn't a very large church, but the people were, and they were, it was not, God wasn't in it. And that's a hard thing, to be a guest in a church and tell them that the Lord's not there. Hey, what you're doing is all in you, and God's wanting to do something, but if you're not going, he doesn't want to be a guest, he wants to host. And we invite him, and if you invite him, he has the opportunity to leave. If he hosts, it's his. And that's the difference. And you got to have God in the middle of all that stuff. And I've been there, and I'm just not interested in ministry where it's man-made. And I know how that works. And it's not hard, it's not easy to figure out. I mean, sometimes you think God's in it and he's not in it, but you got to be able to discern. And these guys had, hey, God is building this thing, and Moses stood up and said, we've got everything we need. You don't have to bring any more. And you just don't see that happen. you know. It just doesn't happen in the American church. You keep giving, you keep bringing, we'll keep spending. That's how it works in the American church. And that really is not the way it's supposed to be. Okay? I'll give you an example. Somebody called, when we first started the church, somebody called and said, they didn't attend here, and they said, got $1,700, they needed an electric bill, and their bill was getting disconnected, or electric's going to get disconnected, they needed $1,700. And they said, you're a church, and there's a need, and you guys should reach out and help. And I said, okay. I said, I hear what you're saying. I said, but have you exhausted all your avenues? And they said, no. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, you come in. We were at the little church on the West End then. And I said, yeah, come in, and I'll meet with you. And they came in, and I said, this is going to sound hard, guys, but I'm just being honest with you. And they came in, and I said, $1,700. Yeah, they brought the electric bill in ready, thought we were going to pay it and everything. I said, okay. I said, now, do you work? No, I'm in between jobs. I said, oh, okay, you're also in between electric. And I wouldn't be hard, I was just being honest. And they said, man, it's $1,700, but I don't have the, can you work? I can, I just haven't been able to find the right thing. I said, how'd you get here today? I said, well, I got a car out there. And I said, oh, really? I said, what's it worth? Do you owe anybody on it? No, it's clear. I said, how much is it worth? He said, probably about $2,500. I said, I'll give you $1,700 for it today. Pay your electric bill. Oh, man, I can't do that. How are we going to get around? Where are you going to live? Now, what I was doing was right down to the crux of the core of motivation. And the job of the church is not to replace the welfare system. The job of the church is to equip equip the saints for the work of the ministry. Right? I would be at a disservice for that person if I would have handed them $1,700, paid their electric bill, and they would have walked back out and been in the same boat they were in next month. I had an obligation to shake them to their very core. If you can answer these questions, you'll never have another electric problem the rest of your life. If you can get a hold of what I'm telling you. And they didn't like it. Now, I was prepared to get them a job. I wasn't going to take their car. I didn't want their car. I wanted to help them get a job. And I had a couple of people that were going to hire them. But nobody going to hire them if they weren't going to stay. Is that hard? Right? It's not welfare. It's equipping. It's empowering. I mean, God, I got this right at 10:30. I hit that. But the reality of it is that's what it is. And I hate it. It's true.
It don't make you look like bad.
No. Here's the thing. I've paid personally, I'm just telling you my own experiences, I paid personally an electric bill for somebody for 3 months in a row. Personally, not the church. This was years ago. And I paid it 3 months in a row because they had kids. On the 4th month they came, and I finally got tired of it. I should have been tired of it 3 months earlier, but I wasn't. On the 4th month, I didn't pay it. And you'd have thought I never paid anything. Blasted me all over. Can you believe that? Who does he think he is? He's a preacher. Think he won't even help you. I'm going, man. And then the only regret I had was losing the first 3 months that I already had given. Why? Because an entitled mindset that is not equipped and empowered, that wants to work, because the spirit of revelation and wisdom came on these people to work and to give offering. So you should have the spirit of work and offering. That should be in you, or you don't have his spirit. Whew. Isn't that hard? Now, I'm not talking about people that can't because they're physically not able, or they have their whole life and now they're retired. I'm talking about well-abled, well-built people that can physically do stuff. Then you got to find whatever that skill that he placed inside of you is. And he always opens up a door, right? It's tough, but that's the problem. Here's why. If the church will continue just to receive all you can give without that spirit of Moses going, we've got all we need, the vision's working, now let's just focus on building people, okay? Moses did that. The church doesn't do that today. So the Church of America sometimes has become the very thing that I just talked about. The church has become the one that needs the electric bill paid. And then when people don't give 3 months in a row, or they give 3 months in a row and they can't give the fourth, the church gets mad at the people for not doing what they're supposed to do and begins to preach and beat the sheep because the needs aren't being met. Am I talking? Anyone else? So it starts with us. It starts with leadership. It starts with Moses. Get the plan. Tell the people. God's Spirit moves on Moses. God's Spirit moves on the people. And together, it's going towards a vision for a presence of God to dwell and people to participate individually and corporately in their life. And that's how this works. It's not a popular message, but it's the gospel. Right? We ought to receive an offering, right? I should just pass the plate. I can just see it right now. I'm just telling you, it's just how it works. In the American people or Western church, you talk about money, people get offended, but the reality of it is, I think the church over the last 50 or 60 years has created the offense. The leadership has created the offense in the people and raised up an entitled people. And the country is really entitled. I'll never forget this, and I'm going to leave you with this. I told this story a long time ago here. About 2 years ago, I was driving down 23 headed towards Louisa. And as I was driving towards Louisa, the Lord spoke to me. I mean, I had praise and worship music on, and I was just kind of in my own little world. And the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me and said, go to Inez. And I said, I don't even know where Inez is. I don't know how to get there. I mean, I saw the sign once. And I said, I don't know, what's in Inez? So I just kept on driving thinking there's going to be a sign here somewhere. Finally, I came upon a sign that says Inez that way. So I drove to Inez, and I was kind of a little concerned. It was on a Friday night. I never forget this. Friday evening. It was daylight still. And I noticed my signal started losing in Inez, my phone. I'm going, I hope this was God. I hope this was the Lord. And so I finally went over a little bridge, and I go around there, and I'm thinking, man, what am I supposed to see here? And now me and God are talking. I'm going, God, am I missing something here? So I just turned on, I had the radio on or music on, and then I just flipped over to the news, and the news said that 300 coal miners had just gotten pink slips, termination, they're going to be let go by Christmas. Their last day is going to be like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or something like that. It was a couple of months away. And I'm thinking, man, I'm in the middle, this is in this area where I was at. That's what this is going to happen. So I kept driving, and I'm driving out through Inez, and finally, I see I don't know if you've ever been to Inez, but there's a McDonald's and a convenience store and a big field. And I come around the corner, and I saw this field, and I saw this tent, this big tent was there, and I thought, man, oh man, I saw people pulling in there, trucks, nice trucks, nice cars, people pulling in there, and they were all lined up around this tent. And I thought, God, something big's happened. So Lord, I was thinking, okay, God, I know what you're doing now. You got me coming to this. Must be some action down here. So I get out of my car, and I walk over, and hey, what's going on? And I finally realized that I had never seen this. I saw the tents before. I didn't know what it was. It was all these people there getting Obama phones. Okay? They were getting all these Obama phones. And, I mean, this is true. So I'm standing there in line, and I'm figuring it out. I'm wheeling my way through here, and I'm talking about people everywhere. They kept pulling in. I said, and they were coming. Some of these people were just getting off work, and had their coveralls on, the whole bit. And I said, hey, what's happening here? And he said, oh man, this is just like from heaven. These are Christian people. A lot of these people are Christian people. Man, you wouldn't believe what God. It's a blessing from the Lord. Minutes. They didn't call it Obama phones. I just kind of put it all together. But minutes. We got free minutes, man. Free phones. I said, really? Yeah. I said, did I just hear on the way down here? Did y'all just 300 jobs y'all losing in this community here? Yeah, that's true. Thank God for these minutes. I said, you're going to praise the very thing that just gave you the pink slip, because you would trade in your job for your phone and your minutes. I was real popular for a few minutes there. I said, you know what? I said, hey guys, I feel like we need to. If I were you, I wouldn't even take the phone. I would take the minutes. I would ask for my jobs back. All right. Well, needless to say, I haven't been back to Inez the rest of my since, and I won't ever probably go back. My point is this: the very thing that you think is a blessing from the Lord could be the very trick of the enemy. And here's how you know. Now, this is 1038. Here's how you know. If it doesn't equip and empower you to take the limits off with the spirit of work and engagement into the community, it's probably not from the Lord. God provides you opportunity. He will not provide you entitlement. The only entitlement you're ever going to get is he saved you. From that point on, it's work. You work from being saved. You don't work to get saved. But once you're saved, roll your sleeves up. Is that all right? As long as you're waiting on someone to feed you, a hand to feed you, yeah, they're your God. Everybody good? That's all out of Exodus. We'll keep going next week. God bless you all. See you in a few minutes.